Thomas looked at me and said, "What do we do?" I said, "Run," because you just don't know when it's going to blow up. And when it did blow up, it blew up quite spectacularly.
It was spectacular.
Made national news. People in that era were bonkers. Sounds great in principle, even better after the first bottle of white wine. It has a motoring history. It comes out of the walls.
Welcome to Vintage Velocity, the podcast from the Vintage Sports Car Club. I'm Lara Plattman, and today we're here with Ben Cussons at the Royal Automobile Club. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Now, for those listening only, we are in the Segrave room, which is a room where all the committee meetings happen, I think. And we have all of the trophies along one wall, and we have some amazing paintings surrounding us. Ben, can you tell us a little bit of some of the paintings that we have in the room and the ones that would just be taken straight away if anything happened to the Royal Automobile Club?
Well, there's a beautiful Gordon Crosby of Brooklands, which I think is a spectacular picture. But just to your left, we've got Sir Henry Segrave, who the room is named after. He was a World War I aviator. He turned his hand to racing. He was the first Brit to win a Grand Prix in a British car in 1923 in a Sunbeam. And then he became the first man to hold the water and the land speed records. He was an inveterate. He raced at Brooklands, obviously, and then he really turned his hand to land speed record breaking. He was the first man to exceed 200 miles an hour in that beautiful red Sunbeam that lives in the National Motor Museum now on Daytona Beach. Sadly, he perished on Friday the 13th, 1930, trying to break the water speed record, but his history is still cherished and remembered with the Segrave Trophy, which is awarded to the individual or group of individuals showing the spirit of adventure on land, sea or in air.
And we are in the Segrave room, so it's very poignant. And I was looking behind me for those watching or listening. We have the Brooklands banking. And can you tell us a little bit about?
Well, Brooklands opened in 1907. It was the birthplace of British motor racing, really, and it was built on Lock King's estate. Before that, there were no dedicated tracks. I mean, there's an argument Monza came a little bit before, but it allowed everybody to go racing. But they weren't racing in the sort of using the horse racing rules because that was the only competition they knew. But it bred a whole generation of young men and women at that time who loved the thrill of the race. They weren't afraid of the danger. There's all these amazing pictures of cars shooting off the banking, and they raced with no protection, cloth helmets, cloth overalls. They were brave individuals in those days.
And so this is the room that we're sitting in. So we are encapsulated by British motor history. And can you tell us a little bit about the Royal Automobile Club? Just a little bit of history for those who have been living in a different planet and who are just joining us about what the Royal Automobile Club is about.
Well, the club was founded on the success of the original, what they call Emancipation Run from London to Brighton, which celebrated the change of law, which meant that for the first time you could drive your car on the road without having a man walking in front of it, going no faster than 4 miles an hour and holding a red flag, which kind of rather negated the idea of buying a car. So those motorists drove down to Brighton to celebrate their newfound freedom of the road. And the following year, in 1897, they founded what was then the Automobile Club of Great Britain and Ireland. It then became the Royal Automobile Club in 1907. This beautiful building that we're sat in today was opened in 1911. It was called a palace of motoring at the time, but it served as well. Even today, it's absolutely packed. We've had people like Ian Callum in here today. It has a motoring history. It comes out of the walls.
And everybody who turns up here, as we saw, everyone just chats to each other. It's an amazing building. Talking about the history and the Emancipation Run, the ladies also joined in with this club because the ladies had their own automobile club, which sort of was formed in 1903, but then formally in 1904, which was celebrated last year on the London to Brighton run.
Exactly, yeah. We had 120 years. It's a pretty amazing anniversary. We had Annalise Felstead paint a fabulous picture, which became the poster and the image on the programme. But you can imagine in those days it was quite a misogynist approach to life. So those women that actually wanted to go racing and driving their cars, they were made of strong stuff, and they clearly held the men to account. And the other lovely thing is when you look back at the sort of veteran stuff, that there was a huge amount of glamour in that era. The cars might have been quite slow, but the women dressed up spectacularly. It was like the Met Gala on wheels.
I mean, they first of all met at the Claridge's. The Duchess of Sutherland was the president from 1904. And Lady Cecil Scott Montague formed it in 1903, but the Duchess of Sutherland was the first president in 1904. And then in the 20s, they amalgamated with many clubs and amalgamated with this club. And the drawing room downstairs was the ladies' room, I believe, of this
It was ladies' drawing room, yeah.
Ladies' drawing room. And there was 50 members of the Ladies' Automobile Club right at the beginning of this club. And they paid 2 guineas each.
It's a good value, I reckon.
And then they paid more to have their cars parked around the back. But the Marchioness of Londonderry and Millicent Duchess of Sutherland, so they were all very landed gentry that had cars here. There was a balloonist, a lady balloonist that was one of the first founding members, and an aviator. So there was some really eccentric ladies here as well.
Yeah, I mean, aviation and motoring formed a key part of those people that were all interested in cars. So Gordon Bennett, the eponymous Gordon Bennett Trophy, he went on into ballooning after he finished running the Gordon Bennett trials. This club founded the Motor Yacht Club, which is still based to this day in Poole, and we also had a ballooning section. If you read some of the early journals, it talks about aviation, it talks about boating. They were into all these new devices. So they just wanted to play with the latest gadget.
All the pioneering devices, yeah. And some of the ladies, they wanted to be part of the Gordon Bennett Cup, but they weren't allowed, so they just did the Brighton speed trials instead, which is great. So you talked a little bit about the London to Brighton, the veteran car run, which was sort of revived in 1927, wasn't it, as we know it today?
Yes, I mean, there were various iterations immediately after that original run in 1896, but yeah, the club took over the management in 1928, I believe it was, and we've run it every year. Obviously, the old war has intervened, but it's grown into an amazing celebration of early motoring. And this year, we'll be very much looking forward to starting the first Sunday in November from Hyde Park, and most of the cars will get there, and sometimes the weather can be a little tricky. But it's a huge challenge, particularly on the early stuff, because there was this pace of development in those cars I don't think has ever been replicated since. You could go, in 1898, you might have a 3-horsepower car that's steered by a tiller, driven by moving levers to adjust belts, single cylinder. By 1901, cars had 12 horsepower, 4-speed gearboxes, brakes, steering wheels, foot accelerators. They were absolutely working out what the best solution was. And a car from one year bears no relation physically or how you control it to a car of the following year. Yet by about 1901-02, everybody kind of worked out it needed a steering wheel. It was best if you used your legs to operate the accelerator and the brake and the clutch, and used your hands for the gears and maybe a bit more braking.
I took some photographs of you on the London to Brighton, I think about, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And you'd stopped just before Houses of Parliament. So I had a huge a photograph of Big Ben, and then beside you, these 2 RAC men, modern RAC men, who did nothing. They were looking at you, smiling and laughing, and you and your passengers were sorting out the car. And then I saw you down at Crawley, I think. Crawley, maybe? Or,
yep.
Happy as Larry, everything had been sorted out, and off you were going. And the smiles on your faces that you couldn't stop, and Brighton was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the veteran car motoring is very much about the journey, and that might mean you get your spanners out on quite a regular basis. But those cars, they weren't terribly reliable, but they're quite simple. You can normally work out what's going wrong. I mean, it's slightly annoying when you break down on Westminster Bridge, because it means you've only got about 2 miles from the start. But the main thing is to keep going, and the sense of achievement and happiness when you get to Brighton it's immense.
It's mad. And talking about sense of achievement, I want to bring up this. I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but I'm holding up a book of the Mad Motorist, the great Peking to Paris race of 1907. Now, Ben, You went on this last year. You competed in this rally last year in a 1914.
American La France.
Yes. Now,
So,
how did you do, Ben?
well, we started in Peking, but we didn't get to Paris. Most people will know American La France actually is an American fire engine, but there was a trend for people turning them into sort of Edwardians because they've got the big chassis, the big 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder engine. They make quite a good Edwardian special. So my great friend Thomas de Vargas Machuca decided that, and being Italian, he wanted to follow in the footsteps of Prince Scipione Borghese. So he would buy a car as close to the original 1907 Itala that Borghese drove, and that we would seek to emulate Borghese's achievement. That sounds great in principle, even better after the first bottle of white wine. In practicality, it was one hell of a challenge. The car is heavy, it's underpowered, the brakes expire pretty quickly, especially on any lengthy downhill section. So every day for us was 12 to 15 hours. And then when you got to camp, if it was a camp, you've got to do all the servicing for another hour or so before you could even sit down and have dinner, although I have to say we always had a cold beer immediately. The event is like nothing else on earth. It's the biggest, the greatest endurance rally, 14,500 kilometers.
It's slightly different, isn't it, from the original 1907 because of the two countries that you go through and avoiding some other countries. You start in China, and what do you miss out now? And tell us about how you navigate that.
Borghese's original route was just China through the eastern bit of Mongolia, and then he went basically all the way through Russia. So in fact, he allegedly, I believe, went to a white tie ball in St. Petersburg before heading south to cross the finish line in Paris and take his well-earned spoils. The route over the last few years has always gone China, then into Mongolia, and then you go up into Russia because Mongolia and Kazakhstan aren't directly connected. And because of the import licenses and the bond you have to pay, it made sense to go through Russia. For obvious reasons, Russia's definitely not a place to go at the moment. And so we took a route that took us all the way through China and then into Kazakhstan. But then you got the next challenge was getting around the Caspian, because if you go north, you've got to go through Russia. And if you go south, you've got to go through Iran. Yeah, neither of which are particularly friendly to Westerners at the moment. So here, the organisers made a decision that we would ship the cars on a ferry from Kazakhstan to Baku in Azerbaijan, and then everybody else would fly over, and then we'd have 2-3 rest days to fettle our cars, which we did, and we duly went through our car, we changed the tyres, and we changed the oil, and we serviced everything. And then we set off to drive to Georgia, and after getting lost for a while, by about 10:30, 11 o'clock, we were flagged down by a local car pointing to the back of the car. Thomas and I both got out, and as we walked around to the back of the car, there was a sort of flame leapt up, and you could see fuel pouring out of the fuel tank. And we had about 110 litres of fuel on board, and it just went in a big flame. Thomas looked at me and said, "What do we do?" I said, "Run." Because you just don't know when it's going to blow up. And when it did blow up, it blew up quite spectacularly.
It was spectacular.
Made national news.
Saw some photographs and some film footage. Now, what's happened with the car, and will you attempt it again?
Well, I have to say, the car was pretty smelly and pretty burnt. I would have honestly left it there as a modern art installation. Thomas was keener to get it back to the UK. So he shipped it back. And we are going to have another go at doing it in 2028. But this time we've upgraded. So Thomas has actually acquired a 1907 40 horsepower Itala, which is a sister car to the car that Borghese drove in 1907. So we are going 100% authentic this time.
Wow. Now, are you going to have the sideboards? And wait, are you going to have a journalist? Because, hello? I can be the journalist.
We're thinking about that, but of course, when Borghese did it, if you actually look at the pictures, although it had this, Borghese had his mechanic and chauffeur, Grizzardi, who was doing all the fettling, and then he had a guy called Luigi Barzini, who was the journo, and that's why at such an early age, that story is so well documented because Barzini was writing about it, and obviously Alan Andrews wrote about it, but Barzini wrote his own book about it.
Oh, did he as well?
In Italian, it's been translated. So in terms of great adventures, it was the first one to be properly documented. We would love to put a journo in there, but in the original run, Barzini had to basically spend the whole time sitting on the running board because the back of the car was so full of spares, kit, camping, food, everything else. There was no room for him to sit in the back. So you might be on the running board.
So I need to go to the gym, do lots of squats, be like doing wing walking or something, like being strapped onto the side of the car.
You need to have a really strong grip just to hold on.
Oh, okay. I might be up for it.
But it was quite cool. We were looking at there was a fabulous 1902 Grand Prix Moors that Miles Collier owns in the States. Used to be owned by Bill Lake, who some people remember his name. And that car has the grab handles because the riding mechanic actually sat on the running board on the floor and with his legs hanging out. I mean, people in that era were bonkers. They didn't know what they were doing. Well, they knew what they were doing, but they didn't have any idea of fear or danger.
I saw lots of photographs of the 50s and 60s of photographers harnessed to the back of cars and at the front of cars, photographing and filming. And we could do that. Be fine.
There's a picture. I don't know if you can see it just behind me. Jackie Stewart, 1969, British Grand Prix, and the photographers. Not only is the apex a couple of rows of bricks, so you wouldn't clip that in those days, but the photographer just standing on the apex of the corner, taking pictures of the Grand Prix racing cars coming past.
With lenses that fall off quite easily.
Yeah. Different era.
But so you will have the running boards.
Yep.
They're quite angular, aren't they? Which are great. You were saying just a little bit earlier off camera. You were saying great for digging yourself.
Well, the idea was that if they needed to, they could take them off, put them under the wheels if they hit soft sand or mud or something, and drive actually on their wings to get them out onto harder ground again. Borghese was a huge planner. He was meticulous in his preparation, studying the map, studying the route, knowing where he was going to go, organising all his fuel stops. But you think 1907, the car's still a very, very new thing. He had to ensure that there was enough fuel all the way through Russia to get him to Paris and beyond.
So so 2028. That's your next venture, right? We have to put that in our diaries and watch what's happening.
I'm sure there'll be a few before then, but that's the next really big one.
Now, let's move on to some sports cars, or a bit later in the competing time period. I've seen you so many times at Goodwood racing, competing, and the Ferrari 250 TR, the Elva, the Triumph Dolomite, the Porsche 911, Jaguar C Type. Would you like to talk about any of those cars or any significant races that you think that was an incredible race and who you were having a good old dice with?
Cool. The C Type has been in the family now for 36 years, so that is as close as you can get to a pair of comfy slippers in terms of a car to drive. But it's a glorious thing. Beautiful car, really simple. As anybody that prepares their own cars knows, it's fabulously easy because you open the whole bonnet and everything's almost as good as having it on the bench. Whereas if it's a Ferrari, you need pianist fingers and narrow arms just to access the spark plugs. Everything's hidden. It's a great race car, great road car. The other stuff, the 250 TR actually was an interesting car because it belonged to a great family friend, and I raced it at the very first revival, which was 1998. And then he sadly passed away. The car was sold, and it was sold to the current owner, who then rebuilt it. And then, 25 years later, he kindly invited me to share the drive with him. So it was rather fun to sit in the seat again and enjoy the car around the same circuit. It's not competitive in a race against listers and stuff, but it sounds absolutely glorious.
Is that the car that drives in the Sunset race on the Friday?
Sussex Trophy.
Sussex Trophy. That's when the sunset
it's
happens.
Lovely. It's yellow with a big black stripe. It's a cool bit of kit.
And it's a beautiful race, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're just watching and gliding around with these other beautiful cars.
Yeah, that you're sort of watching your mirrors after a while for all those really quick listers to come through. But it's just, Goodwood's a lovely flow circuit, great fun. Just enjoy it for what it is. Elva Mk VII, great car. Like a little go-kart, really. Handles beautifully. The Dolomite, that was with my great friend Jonathan Turner, who's as nutty as they come. from up north in Yorkshire. He's a big Bentley man, but the Dolomite was an interesting car because that was Donald Healey's Monte Carlo rally car, and he'd set out to build a car as good as the Alfa 8C because he felt the 8C was the best pre-war car of its type. And he literally copied the engine. But the interesting thing was they copied the engine. Bear in mind, the Alfa would have been metric, and they converted everything to imperial threads. So the engine it looks like an 8C, but it's not quite an 8C because it's all slightly different. But it's an engineering tour de force. But how they pre-select a gearbox, which actually makes it a fabulous low car. And he got the weight really low. It's got big drums on it. It's an amazing car to drive. We raced it, we've rallied it. It's shame it never really worked. They only built 2, and that was the end of the program.
Crikey, so there's only 2 in existence.
Exactly, yeah.
And who's got the other one? Where's that? Have you seen that ever?
Yeah, but funny enough, both of them at one point were owned by chaps from Yorkshire, but they've moved on since. I don't know where they've gone now. You have to ask Gregor. He's been good at buying and selling them for people. And
then what else have we got? The Porsche. Is that something you compete in it with the Pomeroy? No, that's a different.
I've raced a 2-litre 911 a few times, which is it's great fun, but that's a really competitive series, and you have to be honest about your talents and just enjoy the race. I've done the Pom in the 944 Turbo, the 4-cylinder Porsche. I think slightly underappreciated. They're a great car. A lot of people say the engine's in the wrong place, but actually I've just dragged it out of the garage after a couple of years. I've been driving around it for a week, and it puts a smile on your face. It's really good fun.
That's what cars are meant to be all about. I think just talking about the Pomeroy, you've competed in that quite a few times. You came 3rd in class. And how many times have you competed in that?
4 or 5. I've done it in a Vauxhall Nova, which was quite full. A friend asked me, he said, would you like to drive my Vauxhall? I think that's frightfully kind of him. And I'm figuring it's going to be a 3098 or something really rather grand. And I'm imagining myself, staring down that lovely fluted bonnet. So I was really excited because I'd never driven one of those. I thought, wow, yippee, that's really trusting. How amazing. And then, but it was actually a modern Nova, but it had a 2-litre GT engine, so it went like a scalded cat. It was really good fun. I just had a laugh in it, and that's kind of the Pom. I mean, it's such good value. You can drive anything. I mean, one of your previous interviewees, Dougal, was driving his Silver Shadow. I mean, where else can you take a Shadow onto a Grand Prix circuit?
He was listening to his 8-track going round as well.
What was he had? Frank Sinatra, I Did It My Way or something?
I don't know. But carry on. Tell me more about the Pomeroy and who you had little dices and battles with.
Well, what else? I mean, I've done it in TR4, the rally car. That was really good fun. I did it with Patrick Blakeney was kind lent me a Fraser Nash. Had a fabulous dice. Oh, no, shouldn't dice. Wilf Cawley and I were exchanging places regularly on the 40-minute time trial so we could look at each other's cars and wave to each other. But it's really good fun, particularly you're close up with somebody is watching their mirrors. You can take a line, and they're aware of where you are on track. There's nothing better. It was really good when we finished.
Everyone respecting each other.
Yeah, you're respecting each other. I mean, as an event, I just think it's the best value on the planet. Fine, the weather can be challenging. I've been there when it's been foggy. I think we've even had snow one year, but that's part of the charm. We're British, we do quirky things. But you've got all the time trials. You've got the band to the fun. It's a great season opener because you get to see people you probably haven't seen for 3 or 4 months. And you've got all the bits, the wiggle, flying a quarter mile, etc. And then 40 minutes around the Grand Prix circuit just to enjoy yourself. What's better than that? I struggle to think.
So the car, you've had the Triumph, the Porsche, the Fraser Nash, Vauxhall. Any others?
No, I've done it. I think it's twice I've done it in the Triumph. I have to think of something else to have a go in.
Yeah.
But of course, ultimately, you really need a Nash or something because that ticks all the eligibility criteria.
Have your children ever competed in the Pomeroy yet? Or?
Not yet, but it's more just because they haven't been around to do it. We decided we'd embark on going trialling a few years ago, and I have to say, a moment of honesty, I'd been watching this trialling, and I hadn't really studied it very much. And you saw what looked like quite sort of tatty, and this is not derogatory to anybody's trials car, but they look like they've sort of been dragged out of the barn, the chicken's been chased out, and then they go off trialling. So I bought a couple of Austin 7s, a Chummy and an Ulster Rep, and I thought, it's going to be a walk in the park, isn't it? You just turn up, take it off the trailer, put some fuel in it, drive up the hill. It's probably the most humiliating experience I've had in motorsport, because you suddenly realise that these rather tatty, slightly quirky cars, actually very, very finely honed race machines that have been developed not quite over a millennia, but probably at least 2 generations of family ownership to become the ultimate weapon on a muddy orchard or up a rocky slope. And you have to eat. I ate a lot of humble pie because I went back and think, shit, there's a lot more to this. So that was 2 engine rebuilds later. And we're going to have another go next season and see if we can actually achieve a bit more. Our opening round was great fun. Kids loved it. I think actually probably the best weekend they had was when I couldn't make it and they went off and were looked after by Patrick Blakeney-Edwards. So you can imagine the bar bill was huge. They learnt all sorts of new things and it came back with huge grins on their face. So if you want, always trust Patrick for a good time.
And there's also, I haven't travelled at all. I photographed it and I've stood watching, but I haven't actually participated. And the passengers and all the bouncing and the accuracy of that seems like a thing you need to learn about as well.
It's a team effort. That's the thing. It's not, sure, the driver's got control of the wheel and the accelerator, but the passengers are just as important. The more enthusiastic you are, the more fun. And of course, you can do it, as a youngster, although my kids are a bit older now, you can do it, before you can even drive on the road. I mean, it's just sliding around in a muddy field in an old car with the engine screaming. That's all I ever wanted to do.
No, it is a good thing to do. And so we're talking about the Vintage Sports Car Club and the Pomeroy and the trialing. What other events have you competed in with the club? Have you done any hill climbs? Have I seen you in hill climbs?
No, not really hill climb, man. Used to do a spring start quite a lot, but and whenever there was a 50 sports car race with a C Type, I just haven't done much recently, just time pressures and trying to do other things. I suppose also I was mad keen on going racing with a C Type initially, and then you start to discover going rallying, and there's just other things. You want to try everything, don't you?
I mean, I've seen you on motorbiking as well, haven't I?
Yes, yeah, I've done a few. We've done some big trips, South America. We rode from the Atacama Desert down to Ushuaia, which is 7,500 kilometers. On BMWs, it was half of it was gravel, half was tarmac. That was a month.
A month away.
Yeah. I mean, amazing road, South America. Just the place is off the chart. There were sort of roads to infinity where it just went straight as far as you could see. It just went to a dot on the horizon.
And so that's. I'm gathering from all of your expeditions that you are somebody who likes to do some exploring, likes to get away from, doing the Peking to Paris and the motorbike as well, and the rallying. I can imagine that's if you were in a different age and different era in the 20s or 30s, what would you sort of been doing then, do you think?
Probably lost in Africa for about 10 years. I mean, the world's becoming an increasingly small place, and indeed at the moment an increasingly dangerous place. So it's always a challenge to find bits of the world where it's safe and it's fun to go. We did a trip last year, 2 years ago, 2023 now, and we drove from the northwest corner of Mongolia, about 20 kilometers from the Russian border. We went south through the Altai Mountains, which go up to about 3,500 meters high, and then followed the sort of border down, then turned left, basically went through the southern Gobi all the way through, and eventually ended up in Beijing. We took a couple of Land Rovers. The first production Land Rover, built in 1948. We took a 55 station wagon. We took 3 4.5 litre Bentleys. We took a Tuthill Rally Porsche and 4 Grenadiers to carry all the kit, and we made our way. That was 3.5 weeks. And that was just amazing because
that's a variety. It's such a variety of like-minded vehicles, though. Such a variety of ages there.
Yeah, it was fun because the Grenadier's modern four-wheel drive super reliable, but you get so much more adventure by driving an old car. That's why I love the motorbikes. Is that when you're in a country, you can smell it. If there's flowers are blooming, those sort of sensory experiences stick with you. In whether it's dust up your nostrils and in your ears, or being out, and you don't want to be driving along in air-conditioned splendor if you're exploring. You need to feel what the place is like. And for example, Mongolia, you get this very, very, from a distance, it looked green, but it's a desert because it's just got very low rainfall, but you get this lemongrass. And so when you're driving across, and there's no roads, it's just occasional track. Most of the time you're just driving on dirt, and as your tires crush the lemongrass, you've got this fabulous smell of lemon just everywhere. It's all around you.
So that's perfect with the Land Rover and the Bentley. You're open to it.
Open. A little dewy. I mean, that 1948 chassis 1 was incredible. It just trundled along 45, 50 kilometres an hour. Not fast, but it never missed a beat. Never failed us, ever. Starter motor finally jammed up full of dust, but it's so easy. Just push started it for the last few days.
And how? Yes, I've been dealing with my fuel pump for the last few days on my Land Rover, but that's another story there. So what's in the plans for your next adventure? We've got 2028 sorted out, which I've got to figure out how to get some harnesses to
strap you on,
onto the side of the car. But what have you got planned for the next expeditions of yours?
We've got a few things in the pipeline. We're looking at another trip to South America. It's a beautiful place. You can go north, Peru, Bolivia. You've got salt flats 3,000 meters up, which it's salt. It was, at one point the sea was 3,000 meters higher. There's amazing scenery, wildlife. So we'd like to go back there, maybe do a West Coast motorcycle trip again. I mean, Africa's still an amazing country, but it is getting increasingly populated, and it's more people have got a vested interest in protecting themselves, so it gets a little more dangerous. You've just got to be careful.
So now you've been the chairman. You're the former chairman of the Royal Automobile Club, and now you're the vice president, I believe.
A vice president. There's a few of us.
A vice president.
We're sort of hunt as a pack.
And so the whole sort of ambition of the Royal Automobile Club was to be, was for the pursuit of motoring and adventure and pursuit of making sure everyone was a bit safe. And what do you think the responsibility of the motoring club is now as well? I mean, you're one of the great examples of the pursuit of motoring, for sure. But what do you think the responsibility of the club is today?
I mean, the club was founded probably, you could argue, more as a commercial enterprise to promote automobilism and the construction of motor cars. But in 1897, we were just at the birth of what was going to be Britain becoming one of the major motor manufacturing industrial nations. And we're now, sadly, just as it's about to expire, thanks to government policy, which is incredibly sad. But for over a century, we were a world leader. And those founding members they wanted to influence politics, they wanted to get the car on the road, hence the original Emancipation Run. And if you look at it, it's one of the most influential man-made devices in our history. It's allowed us to determine where we go on holiday, whether we tow a caravan, whether we go racing, whether we go rallying, where we live, where we work. All of those things it's enabled. Going forward, I think the club has a dual role. One is to continue to be a natural home for automobilists, racers, ralliers, whatever. Just today, but seeing you, the other people we've seen coming in the club, it's great to talk, to have a bit of banter. But also, when the club sold off the motoring service arms, which is the orange vans you see on the side of the road in 1997, it endowed the RAC Foundation, and that is an independently funded charity that seeks to speak as the voice of the responsible motorist, to research the issues approaching motoring. And that could be whether it's older drivers still being on the road, or safety of cars, or the impact of the environment. But it's only ever evidence-based. So it's not, I just want to keep driving my car regardless. It's what does the evidence that so that foundation is still housed in this club. So we have a sort of dual role through these two separate entities. But the club is influential. The second oldest motor car club in the world after the French, sadly we had to pinch their rules and regulations and translate them. But we have an important role to promote the car, and I really do say that the car is not done. Particularly the internal combustion engine. If I can have a quick rant about policy, why would you take something you've invested 125 years in developing and then just chuck it out on the basis of a policy decision? If you were being logical, you would say emissions have to go from there to there. And you just say, however you can get there is okay. If you can get there, it's okay to build it. But we haven't done that. We've taken let's go down the electric route. And we're now paying this huge price. And we will pay an even greater price because the Chinese saw that. They're coming in. BYD, it is an invasion. And we've also, as the German and Italian auto manufacturers are learning, and particularly the unions, they're realizing an electric car has far fewer components, much easier just to assemble. And so it's going to lead to a loss of jobs and a loss of technology and a loss of skill jobs. It's tragic.
And a lot of smiles per mile. Because the smile per mile of that smell of petrol.
Well, I've run my C Type for the last 3-4 years on sustainable fuel. So 70% of the fuel content is from non-hydrocarbon sources. Well, I know it's still got 30% of hydrocarbon in, but surely 70% less is a really good step in going towards a cleaner future. Goodwood, they did 2 years ago, did just the Porsche race. Now they mandate that everybody has to. Yes, it's a bit more expensive, but actually not more expensive than any race fuel. It's the right thing to do. It keeps our cars still in commission. We can still race them, enjoy them. The industry in the UK is huge. It's a multi-billion industry that's bigger than the Scotch whisky industry, and we want to protect it. And it provides employment for lots and lots of people. We all love it. So I just sometimes do wonder.
So can the Royal Automobile Club have any leverage on this?
Yes, we do, because we get invited to quite a lot of government consultations on fuel, etc. So we work hard to put our case that there are alternative paths that you can go down that achieve the same aim. So why would you just throw all this technology out? And if you look at the internal combustion engine, new car, we're probably now in Formula One, high 30s, maybe 40% thermal efficiency. That's moved from 25 of a decade or so ago. It'll continue to become more efficient. So actually, you use less fuel. It's all about the aim, not the method.
And I know that the Vintage Sports Car Club have a considerable effort making sure the sustainable fuels are on with their events as well.
I don't think it's absolutely the way you should do. What you can't do is then it's the level of emissions. You can't control your spectators. That becomes a really difficult issue. And a lot of the schemes to mitigate emissions, they don't necessarily pass the test. So you're better off just focusing on what you can control yourself, i.e., sustainable fuel in sport.
And it makes us all really happy to keep going to the races and events, and it just keeps everything going. Talking about everything going, the future with the new generation, the new fettlers, the new engineers, the ones that aren't particularly working in electric vehicles, but the ones that are working with the Vintage Sports Car Club and the events and the trialling and Pomeroy and all the people behind the scenes that keep these cars running. Have you got any thoughts and advice for all the new people that want to get into this industry?
Well, it's like getting any job. If you want it enough, you'll get it. Never give up. Be persistent. Be polite. Never ever bullshit. If you don't know the answer to a question, just tell somebody. Honesty always pays off. It's really nice to see both in the veteran car round. We've got a whole bunch of young people who are taking part in the event more and more every year, and they come to the reception. They love it. There's young guys like Tom Parrott, who Nigel, his father, has been a big preparer. Tom's now dealing in the cars. So there's a generation of under 30s who are can't wait to get into these cars. The opportunities there, the industry's all right, probably a bit quiet at the moment, but it's never been in better shape. And if we keep these cars on the road, the need for those traditional skills that suit a lot of people that would otherwise perhaps struggle academically is there. You know, I look at a panel beater. They take a flat sheet of aluminium and suddenly create this most amazing three-dimensional curve, and that's art. I mean, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. So yet people just by looking at the eye, and you think, and they go little English wheel. We've got to encourage more of that because it's an art form and it's a skill. It needs to be nurtured and grown.
And we had Ian Callum in here earlier, one of a great designer, and he started from the age of 6, I think, looking in his local the car dealer's window, and he knew what he wanted to do from such a child, you know.
I think always let the passion in you run riot. Don't. Yes, I was about to say. I will say, don't conform. That doesn't mean you have anarchy, but just follow what you want to do. You know?
And explore the world like you want to.
Because the chances are you'll find a few soulmates along the way who will become lifelong friends that share your passion for doing dumb stuff that you just about survive, and you tell the stories and you dream of the next adventure.
I think we might leave it there because that's such a positive place to end to what will be the next adventure. Thank you so
Pleasure.
much, Ben, for having me here today at the Royal Automobile Club. And thank you everyone for tuning in and watching listening to our podcast. Do remember to look back at the other ones that we've created and see what we're going to do for the next episode. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure.